News. Listen at 610 AM, 102 FM.
I listen, therefore I know.
Online at kvnutalk.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
I listen on the app.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. The death of Duran Baker last week at the age of 90 ends an important chapter in the history of USU's Space Dynamics Laboratory. After earning a Ph.D. in electrical engineering at the University of Utah and completing postdoctoral study at Harvard University, Dr. Baker joined the USU faculty in 1959. He helped establish USU's Electrodynamics Lab, which merged with another lab and later became the Space Dynamics Lab. SDL now employs more than 1,000 people and has put Utah State University on the map as a hub for space research. His lifelong passion was teaching and working with students. He was instrumental in developing USU's involvement with the NASA Space Grant Consortium as a way to enhance higher education opportunities for students. He developed systems engineering and space instrumentation courses for NASA and led or participated in numerous expeditions to remotely sense terrestrial, atmospheric, optical, and microwave emissions using aeronautical and space vehicles. Over the years, he and his research team developed some of the most advanced and successful spectrometric and radiometric imaging sensors. In addition to teaching and performing research, Dr. Baker accumulated industrial experience by working for 7 different firms in the commercial sector and for 2 federal agencies. He authored a dozen books and hundreds of professional publications. Last June, after 62 years at USU, he transitioned from teaching to emeritus status. He is survived by his wife, Kathy, and children, Susan, Stephen, and Philip, 6 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and his sister, Karen. A graveside service will be held this Wednesday morning at 10 at the Providence Cemetery. A viewing will take place on Tuesday, tomorrow evening from 6 to 8 p.m. at White Pine Funeral Services. KVNU News Time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight. We do have a hard freeze warning in effect from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. overnight. Sub-freezing temperatures as low as 25 degrees expected. And that could impact vegetables, sensitive vegetation, crops, even could possibly damage unprotected outdoor plumbing. But the good news is tomorrow it's kind of trending warmer each day, upper 50s for the high tomorrow, and then lower 60s, mostly sunny on Wednesday. And right now, we have 45 degrees at KVNU. KVNU weather is brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. Make your appointment at Logan Dental Associates with Dr. Brandon Preby, Curtis Taylor, or Anthony Larson. Or if it's more convenient, visit them at their Cherry Creek Dental Office in Richmond, a full-service dental office to take care of the entire family.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
KVNU News Time is 5:09. Congressional candidate for Utah District 1, Andrew Badger, was a guest on KVNU's For the People program this past week. A month away from the primary, he said the campaign is going well.
Look, I mean, things are going great. I mean, we just won the GOP state nominating convention with
That's right.
just short of 60%, which would have been make us outright. But, I mean, we beat the incumbent by almost 20%. So I think there's a lot of momentum behind our campaign, and I think there's a lot of excitement for someone who's, America First candidate who's fighting against the establishment, and I think that's what we're seeing across the country.
Among his other accomplishments, Badger has a master's degree in diplomacy from the University of Oxford. He joked that his fiancée, who did a PhD in a STEM topic, teased him about that, saying it's not a real degree. But on the serious side, Badger said diplomacy is vital.
But, the diplomacy is so important because you need to understand how our adversaries think. You need to understand how the world works. And that there's just been no better testament to that fact than what's been going on in Russia and Ukraine. And it's a complete failure of diplomacy by the Biden administration. I think we're escalating the situation in a very dangerous manner. We're basically now in a proxy war with Russia, who's a nuclear-armed power, and Congress is not providing that oversight.
Badger's opponents heading into the primary election are incumbent Blake Moore and Tina Cannon. You can learn more about Badger's campaign at badger2022.com. And federal investigators confirmed that the buildup of ice on the wings and other parts of the plane was a key factor in a 2019 crash that killed 9 of 12 members of an Idaho family on board an overloaded small plane. The National Transportation Safety Board said in its report on the November 30th, 2019 crash near Chamberlain, South Dakota, that the single-engine plane did not have enough seats for all the passengers aboard, and 2 people were likely seated in the aisles when it crashed shortly after takeoff. The report said the plane was about 100 pounds overweight. The crash killed 9 members of the Hansen family from Idaho Falls. KVNU News Time is 5:11. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Reporting the news that matters to you. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, your number one radio station for news and talk.
Hi, this is Drew Allen with Allen Mortuaries. Over the years, thousands of families have planned ahead with Allen Mortuaries. Planning ahead helps you make informed and thoughtful decisions. It also spares your family the stress of making these decisions under the pressure of time and strong emotions. Allen Mortuaries' secure pre-need trust plan can save you nearly 40% versus other plans. Keep it simple, safe, and secure. Go with the proven choice, Allen Mortuaries. Voted best funeral home in Cache Valley in northern Utah. Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. As you've heard, companies are more outspoken these days on political and social issues. So what will they do with abortion now front and center? Also, there's plenty of jobs, but Americans are still gloomy about the economy. Hear the issue besides inflation that's weighing on our minds. And can driving in eco mode really help you save on gas? Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of today's show, Monday, May 9th. Just a reminder again, big start to this week. Congressman Blake Moore and Governor Spencer Cox on KVNU tomorrow night. Congressman Moore is part of our regular show. He'll be with us at about 5 o'clock tomorrow, kicking off Hour 2. And then in Hour 3, that's right, I'm calling it Hour 3, direct link with Governor Spencer Cox joining us. This is a call-in program the governor does on a regular basis.
We used to have an Hour 3.
Yeah, we did have an Hour 3 for
in the summer.
Yeah.
A few years back.
That was tough. that third hour was... It's
80 degrees outside,
yeah, it's
85,
beautiful
sun was
outside.
shining.
And then you've been doing it for 2 hours already. It was a bit much, but tomorrow night, one off, we can do this. So I'm excited about this. Direct link with Governor Cox, of course, a call-in show, a full hour, unscripted, with a focus on rural areas and rebroadcast throughout the rural parts of the state. So this is a unique event, and we're happy to be able to, back-to-back, actually. The rotating schedule kind of fell apart due to some unforeseen circumstances in other parts of the state, so we're doing it again. We had our chance a couple months ago, and we'll keep rolling with it. So Governor Cox here tomorrow, 6 to 7 p.m., and I'll be moderating that as well, taking your calls and comments. And again, for our listeners, if you want to make sure your question gets asked, because sometimes the phone lines do get pretty packed and time does run out. An hour seems like a long time, but it goes fast. You get an opportunity, since I'll have the bully pulpit. If you'd like to make sure your questions get in, email them in advance. at kvnuftp@gmail.com. So, and again, Congressman Moore will precede that event starting at 6 o'clock. Congressman Moore will be with us talking about the recently published report from his Debt and Deficit Task Force. That is coming up at 5 o'clock tomorrow. On Wednesday's show, State Representative Mike Peterson, who is in a heated battle for his reelection, being challenged by kind of a powerhouse here in Cache Valley and former state lawmaker Val Potter. That's one of the, I think, most energetic primaries going, and he'll be with us at 5:10 on Wednesday. So we'll also check back in with the county council races, 2 primaries happening there as well. So pretty big week here on the show. Keep posted as we finalize some of these dates. One other quasi-announcement to make, speaking of this race between Peterson and Potter, there is, I think there's more than one plan, but the one I'm aware of specifically because I've been invited to moderate the event, a debate planned at the historic Cache County Courthouse, tentatively scheduled right now for June 2nd. But that could shift, but it will be in that first week of June for sure. So keep an eye out for that as well. But right now they're looking at June 2nd for this event, and that will be open to the public. So, wow, just a lot going on. Water, drought, all of that. We've had some pretty wet days and even weekends over the last month or so, and things actually, as far as what's normal for late April, early May precipitation, it's we've been above normal amount of precipitation for a specific day or week, contrasting with the last 100+ years of climate data that we have collected here in the state, rain totals and things like that. We've also had some underperforming days, but on average, it's been a very average last 30 days. The problem is we needed well above average because we had a below average snowpack, and we're coming off of the first year of a severe drought into the second. So everything's already pretty dry out there, which means reservoirs are leaking more water into the ground because everything's so dry, etc. So it's been a wetter period of time than anticipated and a bit above average even for some days and weeks over the last month. We're still headed into a pretty severe drought. Though, again, everyone's saying this won't be as bad as last year. It's still pretty bad compared to what's quote-unquote normal. Or maybe some arguing this as well. This is normal here in Utah, and things have just been a lot wetter than normal for 75 years. It does happen. I don't know which one of those is true. All I know is things are dry, and it's probably best if we start planning for things remaining this dry or close to it. We're in a desert state, or at least most of the state is. So USU has collected all of their information and resources through decades of research and made it available to the public and to state lawmakers and anyone interested at drought.usu.edu. And that website got a lot of traction today. I don't think this was, intentional on their part whatsoever. They were simply doing what they do through that website, putting out interesting information. And the article that got all this attention and led to what we're going to talk about here at the start of the hour was an article on drought and cow-calf producers. And, it starts off, it says, a drought is a recurring event faced by many cow-calf producers as well across the nation. As drought events increase in their severity, it is important for cattle producers to have a management plan to mitigate the economic effect of drought. And it talks about that, how drought, of course, affects everything involved with especially a large herd. And so a lot of times in drought years, depopulating the herd is a phrase you may have heard before. And that will become necessary for financial reasons, but also just to keep things viable. And so planning for this in a strategic way, USU researchers write, can actually help larger ranches and ranchers weather this type of thing. And so that was the article. Nothing controversial about that whatsoever, but it was produced. And as it was being discussed online in a couple of different places, someone made the comment that, it's too bad that we are currently telling, meat producers or dairy producers that they need to make these significant changes to adapt to drought which we are telling them to do and incentivizing them to do, even if it's just in changes to certain agricultural practices that involve watering and which crops you are watering. We are, pointed in that direction. And someone said, I think kind of a fair criticism, someone said, it's too bad we're putting all this effort into this, and yet new golf courses are still being constructed in St. George. And man, it was like that person ripped the lid off of a bottle of angry, starving hornets. It was just an explosion of, this started as a Facebook discussion group in it was the Utah Policy discussion group where a bunch of, political junkies sit around. And then it kind of spread from there into general pages. I even saw it pop up in Deseret News comment pages, and more people linking to some of this discussion on water and drought related stories. It's been going on for a couple of weeks now, and I'll be honest with you, it's been fascinating to watch. Not just fascinating. I'm not saying I like watching people argue and scream at each other on the internet. What caught my eye, or what's interesting about this to me, is it raises some important questions about some things we've heard a lot about, and this is good, and I'm not trying to encourage anyone to stop conserving water in their yard, because obviously that's going to have a huge impact. And there's something that's just common sense about thinking about things like xeriscaping and minimal water usage in your yard when you live in a desert. I mean, that really is just common sense, and I'm looking right at you, St. George, for this, because we've all seen by now, if you haven't, they're easy to find, Google them, water usage per capita in St. George compared to the rest of the country. And of course, part of that is it's taking a lot more water per person, per family, per household to keep the lawn green. But you're in St. George. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to keep the lawn green. And that is a great segue into this argument that's been playing out for a couple of weeks now. And the simplest way to bear these questions down is, should Utah be looking at, or even if you want to expand it beyond Utah, Colorado, Arizona, which I believe is second only to Florida in acres per capita used by golf courses. I'm double checking that. I remember reading that. I don't know if I know it was true at one point. I don't know if that's changed. But yeah, Arizona was second to Florida in 2015. We'll see if that's changed. But either way, it's a legitimate question. The problem is, golf is a sport. I'm making the quotey fingers. I like to refer to golf as a game because I don't recognize it as a sport. I'm one of those that if you're going to call it a sport, someone should be breaking a sweat. And unless it's super hot outside or you fall, you're probably not breaking a sweat in golf. Not very often, at least. So I call it a game, and I do that just to annoy my golfer friends. But either way, it's enjoyed by a lot of people. It's a staple, for better or worse, it's a staple of the business community. And a lot of people are going to say that's worse. I know I cringe when I've got a meeting with an important client, and I know it's going to involve either a 3-hour lunch or golfing. And I do wonder myself sometimes, do we just do this because this is what everyone else is doing? Because I've been on some trips where I felt like no one was enjoying themselves, not even the person who organized it. But it's what you do when you're meeting with a client or something like that. It's a legitimate question, but far more seriously is, in the context of the drought and water use, is this something we should be talking about? And obviously, be realistic about what you're suggesting. It's easy to say in an online forum or in an email to a lawmaker who, by the way, a couple of lawmakers shared with me after I inquired about this very discussion, contact they're getting from constituents. And they shared with me some emails that they'd gotten from one lawmaker here in Cache Valley and one in Davis County, Senator Todd Weiler. And it's something that obviously people have strong opinions about, and they're to the point where they're taking the time to type an email to their state representative saying, if we're going to talk about all this, if we're going to tell people growing alfalfa as a way to make a living that they can't do that anymore because alfalfa requires so much water, which we're not doing that. But it's been suggested that we incentivize people to grow different crops on their family farms or what have you, because alfalfa is not the smartest crop to be growing in a desert state, which is technically true. It is also a very lucrative crop. There's a huge market for it. You can't ignore that. If we're going to be doing that, people have argued, have we really eliminated the low-hanging fruit options already? And wouldn't golf courses be an example of that? One thing that is usually the case is, golf courses can, but often aren't, making money for the city. But at the same time, you can't just look at that, the black and white bottom line on a single item budget within a city's full budget, because you have to, which is impossible really to do, but you have to at least attempt to quantify or consider what happens if you don't have a golf course. Using Logan City as an example, would it be possible that we lose out on some big conventions, or because you don't hear about them a lot unless you're specifically in the industries that they're focused on, but there are some pretty decent sized conventions that come here and utilize space, both in hotels in Cache Valley, but also event centers that exist on campus and off. Also, it's a really decent, for those that live here, we know this, pretty decent place to have to spend a 4-day weekend for a business conference or some sort of training, right? Would we lose out on those? That's an argument that's often made, is that a golf course is part of a whole package. It's part of having convention centers. It's part of having a lot of hotels. People expect to have that option when they travel somewhere for work or for a conference or what have you. And if we didn't have it, maybe they would go elsewhere, because there are a lot of elsewhere options for a 4-day business conference that's going to fill a hotel and local restaurants. You don't want to lose out on that because you don't have one, but no one knows. It's never really been quantified. It's impossible to truly quantify. But what are the economic benefits of a golf course? I would assume there have to be some. And I'm not just talking about golf courses that are able to monetize. Even privately owned courses obviously are making money, or they wouldn't operate. City-run golf courses can, but often don't. But I'm saying step away from that and just say, is there an overall benefit economically that makes it worth it? And if it is a large enough benefit to offset the detrimental side of a golf course, which in a desert state experiencing multiple drought years is just, that's a lot of water that we have to use. Now the conversation wanders into many different directions. Could golf courses be designed and built more smartly? Sure. Could you use different turf to get the same lush effect as the traditional water hungry grass? I don't know. I think that's been well experimented with. I think golf courses are stuck with what golf courses currently are, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, two things a lot of water going towards keeping a golf course green, and in St. George, that seems ludicrous. The other thing is there's an economic benefit to having a golf course. Again, St. George, a great example of this. Logan, Utah, a great example of this. There are expectations that people have, for better or worse, and yes, maybe they're changing, maybe they have changed. I don't know. But at least to date, there are expectations that if you're going to host a big business conference somewhere, if you're going to bring a large group to town, that fills restaurants and hotel rooms. But there is an expectation that there will also be certain other opportunities for recreation, and golf courses are a big part of that. It's what brings a lot of groups to Cache Valley, because you have access to mountains and trails, but you also have a golf course. You also have a lot of restaurants. You have a lot of hotels. It makes it a perfect destination for a 4-day business conference, and that's why a lot of them come here. Would that change if we eliminated the golf course or golf courses for the sake of conserving water and drought? You got to ask these questions, and I don't see a lot of those questions being asked. And I'm saying this, almost defending golf courses here, as a person who absolutely hates the game. It ain't a sport, the game. What do you think? 753-5868. We'll be back right after this.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Oh, Overwhelmed with Medicare questions? Jessup Insurance, at no cost to you, offers every plan available, guiding you through the entire process. Jessup Insurance is passionate about simplifying Medicare. Call Jessup Insurance, 435-213-3200, or Google Jessup Insurance.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
At Red River Health and Wellness Center, we utilize non-pharmaceutical approaches to help patients with challenging autoimmune and thyroid conditions. And because each person is unique, we design custom care plans that focus on the individual. Our goal is to improve health, well-being, and quality of life. We work in conjunction with your prescribing physician for an optimal outcome. Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER, with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Technology can make our lives more fun, but when tech is used for cyberbullying, children's lives can be damaged. Peter and Amanda Como found good communication protects their kids.
I would suggest go to jw.org. The resources there are just practical.
Their 16-year-old son picked up tips to help if he was bullied.
Oh, you could use humor. You could just not listen. It'll dissolve the situation.
To find more tips and tools to protect your child from cyberbullying, look to stopbullying.gov or search bullying on jw.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
We are there in your community. Small business owners, mechanics, police officers, homemakers. And we are there serving our nation in the Air Force Reserve. When medical emergencies arise, we meet the challenge. In cybersecurity, protecting and defending in cyberspace. When natural disasters happen, we are there in space. As a strong part of the nation's defense, we are there in the community and we are there for our nation. We share a vision to make a difference, united and focused, taking pride in being there in service of our country. We are Reserve Citizen Airmen, and we are there with over 180 different jobs to serve your country. Air Force Reserve.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Speaking of drought resources quickly, and then we'll move on from this one, unless people want to weigh in. I thought this one would be a sure hot button, but maybe people have made up their minds or even gotten tired of the discussion. But the question is, again, should Utah incentivize or even encourage or worst case scenario, mandate elimination of golf courses? Now, obviously, the state would only have the option to do so when it came to making it hard for a city to run a golf course. The state would never and should never, just target a certain private industry and say you can't do that unless they're harming people, which I guess you could make the argument things could get bad enough that you could call one day golf courses a public health risk or a something that is, damaging the state to so badly. I don't think we're there yet, but it's a legitimate question. When we're talking about different types of landscaping for our yards, we're talking about incentivizing, family farms to stop growing alfalfa and grow more water-friendly crops that maybe not as lucrative on the market. If we're going to start asking those questions, we can't just pretend. Especially if you've ever seen, the courses in the very dry parts of the state, St. George. We can't just pretend they aren't there and that they aren't sucking up a lot of water. But then, like I said, you also can't pretend just because you, like maybe me, I don't care for the game. I won't call it a sport. I don't care for it. I get it. I've played it. I understand it. I respect people who like it. I find it boring. That's my personal opinion. But even that said, I'm going to sit here and say you can't ignore the fact that, well, let me put it this way. At least to date, I think it's possible to, if someone were to dig deep enough, you could prove that there's an economic benefit to a city, to a county, to a region of a golf course. It draws in certain types of conventions, certain types of business activity, certain types of tourist activity. And it doesn't mean people are, someone out there is going to say, oh, yeah, sure, people are getting on a plane to fly and golf in Logan. No, I'm not saying that. It probably happens. Everyone has a favorite course, all the golfers I know. And there are some award-winning courses in northern Utah at large. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when people travel for a business conference or travel for a 4-day weekend getaway with the family somewhere, there's certain expectations. And I think there's, to date, evidence, at least, that there is this expectation that, a golf course is one of the many options people want when they choose a destination for any reason. Maybe that's changed. That's an argument I hear a lot, that's changed, that people don't feel that way anymore, and yet we're still pouring money and water into these things. I don't know. But I completely agree with those making the argument today that, if you're going to ask family farms to stop growing alfalfa and grow more, and by ask, the state is encouraging and incentivizing this is what we're talking about, not a mandate. But if you're going to encourage people to grow more water-friendly crops that maybe make them less money as a family farm, you have to be able to at least ask, and I agree with this, have we really picked all the low-hanging fruit? And might not golf courses be some of that low-hanging fruit? There's some great resources on this, by the way. We did get one response from a listener. Others, if you'd like to weigh in, 753-5868. But one response from a listener here saying, asking, do golf courses really eat up that much water? It depends on what you're comparing them to. Not in contrast to a lot of things that we could also stop doing. But, you have to consider no golf course is small. That's the whole point of a golf course, right? And so we're talking acres and acres, and in some of the biggest ones at least. And it requires a lot of water. I mean, that's a lot of grass in the middle of July to keep green. And if it's not green, if it gets too dry and too bristly, it's no longer useful as a golf course. And if a golf course gets that reputation, that's kind of what happened with Ben Lomond, then they're done. So, what do you think? 753-5868. I've posted a link to some of this discussion and how it started, some of the research that Utah State University Extension put out that kind of spawned this discussion. I've linked to that on our Facebook page, and happy to keep the conversation going. We can also move on depending on whether or not you want to weigh in. 753-5868. We do have a caller on the line, Bob, on golf courses. Bob, hold tight. You're first up right after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:38, and the news is brought to you by Whole Tree Care. Federal officials ordered limits this week on how much water is released by Glen Canyon Dam in order to maintain sufficient levels to generate hydropower. But conservationists warn time is running out to develop long-term solutions to the West's dwindling water supplies. The Bureau of Reclamation is cutting its release from Lake Powell into the Colorado River by 500,000 acre-feet over the next year. The move is aimed at keeping the water level above 3,400 feet, the minimum needed to drive Glen Canyon Dam's hydropower turbines. Taylor Hawes with the Nature Conservancy says, while the move buys some time, stakeholders need to develop long-term solutions to dwindling water flows.
These announcements are just continuing to show how dire the situation is, and the longer we wait, the less options we have. There really is a sense of urgency to not waste the 9 to 10 months that we've just bought ourselves and to continue finding solutions and implementing them quickly.
Hydropower generated by Glen Canyon Dam serves customers in Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Wyoming, and Nebraska, as well as the Navajo Nation. Hawes says cutting the flow from Lake Powell means less water in Lake Mead, the primary water supply for millions of customers in Arizona, California, Nevada, and parts of Mexico.
It will mean less water going down to Lake Mead, which will be impacting Lake Mead and the lower basin state to some degree. The goal of these operational rules, though, is that it will be what they call operationally neutral. Ultimately, there's less water in the system.
And Hawes says as long as the annual snowpack in the Rocky Mountains remains below historic levels, water supplies will continue to drop. Fire crews in Brigham City battled a fire at a shed during the early morning hours Saturday. Brigham City Fire Department said the call about the fire at 3000 North, 2650 West came in at approximately 5:40 a.m. KUTV reports that when crews arrived, they said the fire was spreading to an adjacent home, and a parked truck nearby also was on fire. No one was home at the time of the fire. Crews said due to gusty wind conditions and limited hydrants, the fire was difficult to contain and put out. But at 7 a.m., all crew members were able to safely extinguish the flames. According to a press release from Brigham City Fire, there was an estimated cost of damage to be about $175,000. And the city of Boise has agreed to settle a sex discrimination lawsuit filed by a former Boise police officer for $400,000. Federal court documents filed Thursday say the city agreed to settle the lawsuit with Sierra Berg. Berg is receiving $100,000 in lost wages and back pay and $300,000 for emotional distress, mental anguish, injuries, court costs, and attorney fees. Berg filed the case in U.S. District Court in April 2020 after being fired. She contended she was retaliated against and became the target of sexist discrimination and malicious rumors after reporting that a training officer applied a chokehold to another officer in training. A Boise Police Department spokeswoman did not immediately respond. On Saturday, seeking to Associated Press, who is seeking comment. KBNU News Time is 5:42.
Men, sometimes women drop subtle hints like,
"Hey, honey, the weather sure is nice today."
"Yeah, I think I'll go golfing with the fellas."
Ugh, whatever.
Sometimes we just need more direct language like,
"Honey, call Whole Tree Care to trim and clean up all those gnarly shrubs and dead, twisted branches. I want to enjoy the yard this summer, not dread it."
You know, I was thinking the same thing. Call Whole Tree Care, 760-6587. Ask about their radio discount. They also do tree and stump removal. 760-6587.
KBNU weather for tonight. We do have a hard freeze warning overnight for the Cache Valley, the Utah portion, also eastern Box Elder County. Overnight lows could be mid to upper 20s. And then tomorrow, partly cloudy skies, becoming mostly sunny and warmer. High temperature in the upper 50s with southwest winds 10 to 20 miles an hour in the afternoon. Right now we have 46 at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They put clients first under any circumstance. You'll receive peace of mind with Adams Wealth Advisors. Schedule a time with an advisor today. Call 752-1702 or visit adamswealthadvisors.com. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
The bugs love the good weather. I'm guessing you have a bunch of those creepy crawlers waiting patiently to come into your cozy home. Let Logan Extermination take care of those unwanted pests with a monthly exterior spray. Now, for a limited time, they'll spray your home's exterior for only $55 per month. That's a savings of $15 a month. Call Logan Extermination before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450. Logan Extermination is a great place to work, and they're hiring. Call today for more information.
Ah, that's better. Trade in the stresses of building a new home for relaxation. Visionary Homes Priority is giving you a stress-free building experience. Named the best home builder in northern Utah, Visionary Homes team will guide you seamlessly through the home building process. Call today, 435-228-4702, or visit visionaryhomes.com to learn more about upcoming communities in Nibley, Logan, and Smithfield. Visionary Homes, built for living, built for you.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Talking golf courses and drought here on the show. Research from Utah State University was the center of a discussion in Utah public policy circles today after it raised a legitimate question. The research was actually on changes ranchers and farmers can make to their crops, to their cow-calf herds, things like that. And someone basically said, and it got all the way around to lawmakers who sort of weighed in at a certain point this afternoon. Someone basically said, why are we telling, for example, family farms that they should maybe consider not growing alfalfa because it uses so much water and grow something else that's maybe less profitable, and yet we're not saying a word about all these golf courses? It's a simple question, a legitimate question. And I'm making the argument that you also have to assume or factor in, I think, there's an economic benefit to golf courses. And I'm saying that as a person who does not care for the game. It's not a sport. It's a game. But there is, maybe not anymore, but to date at least, there's been an expectation for conventions, for tourism, for residents, of a golf course being available. Sure, maybe that's changing. There has been some evidence that golf has lost a lot of its pizzazz and attraction, but I don't know. I'm just saying you can't neglect factoring that type of thing in. So I'm asking listeners how they feel. 753-5868. Bob on the line. Bob, thanks for waiting through the news there. Your thoughts on all of this?
Well, first of all, I agree 100% with what you're saying. A lot of this has to be questioned.
About it not being a sport?
Yes, that's true.
Thank you.
And I truly hope that my wife is not listening right now.
Oh, sorry.
She loves it, and she's patient enough that she takes me along every once in a while.
Oh, nice.
But there are ways to address it, and the company that I work for has developed some irrigation equipment or monitoring equipment that basically what it does is it measures the temperature of the day, the amount of wind, the amount of solar, and it calculates how much basically the ground would have evaporated, how much water the grass would have used.
Oh, wow.
And in doing that, then it would have translated that back into saying, this is when you water again. And so it's not a matter of you just turn your sprinklers on for 30 minutes every day, 7 days a week, but it actually interrupts that circuit and says, okay, we have not used as much as you put on last time. We can maintain this grass looking this way or at this level with only this much water. And so there's some automation to it that takes place, and principally the sale of that product has gone to municipalities, golf courses, those kinds of things that use tremendous amounts of water. And they have found significant savings. Of course, their purpose is to save dollars, but in so saving dollars, they save water. And so
that's intriguing.
It is a way. Yeah, it is a way that you can cut back. University up here has done that. We worked with them. They've got some stations, and some places in the valley, at least at one time, you were able to set up a radio even at your home and gain that information from a station on the university that would then tell your system at home that, okay, today we water, tomorrow we don't, that kind of thing. So
that's fascinating because you'd have residential applications. I assume it could be scaled up to an agricultural setting as well. And
absolutely,
for lack of a better phrase, this idea of smart watering, it to me is, when we talk about low-hanging fruit, Bob, this is what I think of as low-hanging. I think, why are we not? By the way, I have the same problem with our power grids. Why are we not doing this? Why are we not adopting a smarter approach to what we're already doing, instead of having so many conversations about in a more of a panicked way, like, we've got to all the golf courses have to go. Maybe there's a middle ground where you keep the golf courses and adopt smart watering tech instead. Are you able to say, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Bob, but are you able to say the name of the company? Is this something that's commercially available?
Yes, it is. I work for Campbell Scientific.
Okay.
The original product they developed was a company that was called Irisoft, and that has since been sold, and I believe the product now is called Smart Rain. And Smart Rain, until recently, was getting about 50 control boxes a month from us. They have just upped that. They're pushing out about 100 boxes a week now. And so wherever they've found that market, whoever they've gotten interested in, they're moving about 100 of these. Now, that's nothing compared to Rainbird or somebody like that does that.
But sure, but still.
Still, this same technology, Campbell's has sponsored, or not sponsored, but has used their product line with Rainbird and Toro for many, many years on golf courses to do this very thing. And they look at soil moisture content in order to decide if we've gotten dry enough that we actually legitimately can water. So
that is
there's
intriguing
out there somewhere. Mm-hmm.
Very cool, Bob. I appreciate you calling, because this gets to the nuances of this. This is part of, I think, what we overlook sometimes when we just start looking at where water's going. We start looking at what we can eliminate, and anything we're not interested in can go. Anything we love has to stay. And there's this opportunity to look at this type of technology, and especially important that it would be designed and built right here in Cache Valley. That makes it even better, and get smarter about our water usage in general in any application. Bob, I'm glad you called to talk about this. This I think gets to what we should spend most of our time discussing.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for bringing it up.
Well, I appreciate the call and taking the time to make it. For listeners, by the way, the devices Bob mentioned, Campbell Scientific has some specs on these you can look at if you want to get an idea of that. I've linked to them on our Facebook page as we've been discussing this with Bob here. And Bob, again, thank you for the call. For others out there, if you'd like to join us, 753-5868. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
This is Sweetwater Window Cleaning. Now spring is here, you'll be wanting to reclaim your home from all that dirt and grime. Why not have us take care of the window cleaning for you? I'm sure you've got plenty on your to-do list already. And let's face it, when you climb that dangerous ladder to clean your own windows, they never come out as good as you'd like. Let us give you that safe, crystal clean, professional results you want. Mention this ad and we'll remove hard water for free.
Sweetwater Window Cleaning, 363-6543, 363-6543.
Summer is just around the corner. Don't crank up your AC unit before getting it serviced. Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning is the team you should call for quality on-time service. If your system needs replaced, think York. York has the best warranties in the business with affordable financing options. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning at 752-7272 or stop by their showroom west of DI. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
Comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
The Logo Shop invites you to sign up for a foursome and support the Logan Schools Foundation Slough in the Rough Golf Tournament, scheduled for Friday, May 13th. It's a great morning of golf at the Logan River Golf Course while raising money for the students and teachers in the Logan City School District. Contact Shanna Longhurst at the district office to sign up, or just email shanna.longhurst@loganschools.org. The Logan Schools Foundation Slough in the Rough Golf Tournament, Friday, May 13th.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, Biden trying to convince you that inflation is not the Democrats' fault. Well, that's not going to go over very well. Plus, Clay, what do you got?
We've got a couple of great guests. Douglas Blair at the Daily Signal. He was actually out amidst all the people that were protesting around the Supreme Court justice houses and Senator Marsha Blackburn. Come hang with us, Tuesday edition.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. I'm Jason Williams. It is fascinating to, all of our calls are great, but to get a call with someone with some experience in exactly what we're talking about and then leave us all a bit more informed. So thanks again to Bob for that. Bob talking about Campbell Scientific's efforts to get, this commercially available smart water type technology out there and easier to find. That's where my brain goes with all of this. And as I mentioned while we were talking to Bob there from Campbell Scientific, I feel the same way about our electrical grids. I think I was really excited to see the infrastructure bill pass last fall. I know it was controversial. I know for some, because it happened under a Democrat, they're just going to hate every bit of it. I think Senator Romney went a long way to diffusing some of that partisan blinderness. I just made that word up, blinderness, because he was such a proponent of this and actually one of the key figures in crafting the end result that passed and was signed by President Biden. One of the reasons I was excited about that is we are so far behind. If you see what even India and of course China and Japan, absolutely, if you see what they're doing when it comes to their water systems and their power systems, their electrical grids and smart technology, we're just getting left in the dust. And you can blame politics for most of it. It's everyone's so busy fighting for re-election here in the United States and fighting against all the money in our political election system and trying to retain power more than get anything done. And so it's pretty easy to kick expensive cans down the road. And that's exactly what's happened with investing in infrastructure. So our power grid is so out of date. I mean, we're updating it and keeping pace mainly, but we're doing it bit by bit. Whereas some of these other countries are just like soaring up above us in smart grid technology and infrastructure in general. So I was excited to see that bill pass. Now I want to see states use the money allocated through that federal bill to do stuff like what Bob was talking about, to invest in smart technology with power grids, to invest in, there was talk recently about these devices that can be poured right into the concrete of a stretch of freeway that sense certain temperatures and conditions and immediately change through, it's a complex little technical system, but they can actually become ice-preventing stretches of, especially, let's say, a bridge on a stretch of I-15. There's a nasty one as you head out towards Boise from here that, if you've ever traveled in the wintertime, everyone who does that regularly knows that bridge frequently, even in the daytime, can be a solid sheet of black ice. They can actually build technology that senses temperature, humidity, things like that, and then either sprays or one I saw actually changed. There was a color tint that would pop up that would increase the heat of that stretch of road just enough the ice would disappear.
That's cool.
Yeah, and here's what's weird though: it's not new technology. It's just not been widely adopted. Because it's expensive and it requires an investment. It would require elected leaders to stop focusing so much on just their own re-election or their party's future and to actually be there to do what we supposedly send them to do. And that's frustrating. So I'm excited to see some of this shift a little bit with the passage of that infrastructure bill. But now we get to the part where the state's spending it. The money is allocated in the bill. And I really hope that we're going to explore some of these creative options because drought is a big deal here in Utah. Always is, but it's in our faces right now. So there's an opportunity here to really do something instead of kick this can down the road. Our power grids need some updating as well. Our roads, technology in general, as far as our infrastructure goes, could all use some updating. Cities are doing the best they can. Counties, too. The state has, like the federal government, I think, kicked some expensive cans down the road for political expediency. And I'm hoping that items like the device Bob talked about, another one sent in here by a listener talking about, this different type of grass that's being engineered just for golf courses, but it is they lost their funding because everyone was mad it was for golf. That's dumb. Fund it. We'll keep talking about this, I'm sure. We're headed into the second year of this drought, so plenty of time to cover all these topics and more. Appreciate all of our listeners tuning in. Please stay tuned. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.